We've basically got one of Vic's sisters on the podcast, kind of, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
You've sort of related to her.
Yeah, kind of like family. She's my sister's husband's brother's partner.
Nice.
Yeah, God, that took me a while.
Just kind of like a sister.
Sister-in-law-ish. Sister-in-law. I don't know if that's a thing. Yeah,
It's not a
anyway,
thing.
she is a 30-year-old, and she's born in the UK actually, but she now lives in New York, and she has created this incredible business called Diem, which is Diem, and it's all about empowering. It's like a search engine for women and for non-binary folk, and it's all about building community.
It's a search engine for the social stuff that you wouldn't find on Google. So like what is it like to have an abortion? What if you need a morning after pill? What should sex feel like? You know, like really intense taboo conversations that you actually can't find really anywhere else on the internet. It's super regulated. There's a lot of AI integration now, but essentially the way that it works is what do they say? They say it's like if WhatsApp and Reddit had a baby.
If Reddit, ChatGPT, and your girls group chat had a baby, that's what DM would be. And it's such a good summary.
The reason we wanted to speak to Emma is not only has she founded an amazing business, she's actually a similar age to us, but also her perspective on raising money, on paying yourself when you work for yourself. There was so many interesting conversations, and she was really open about what that's like running a business and how your personal money values can infiltrate through into the way that you lead teams. It was a super fascinating chat, and we actually made a little trip all the way to Bristol for it.
Yeah, met her mum and dad, did it in the house. It was
She
really
was
nice.
Visiting from New York, and we were like, oh, we'll come to you, we'll come. Well, actually, I was like,
So I was like, I've never been to Bristol. I was like,
I really wanted to go. But yeah, it's a great chat, and we will throw to her now.
yeah. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
We also just need to apologise for the fact that we're both wearing all white outfits. It looks like we've come straight from...
I'm bringing the colour.
Yeah. It looks like we've just joined a cult and wearing white tops and white bottoms.
It's actually the Curves community program. Yeah.
Yeah. We take, really troubled youth in and help them find the path. Emma's company, actually, why don't you introduce it? Because I'm sure we were just talking before this podcast, like sometimes you can get a little bit unenthused with the same story when you're talking about yourself, but I think if we try, it's not going to sound as cool.
I'll try. So Diem we're building a search engine that is inspired. We say it's inspired by the way women have talked for centuries. What that really means is that it's when you go to search, you get community answers, you get things that are sort of like more social proofed than your average like web page that you might get delivered to you from Google. And the idea is really that we are on a mission to close the gender information gap, which you guys obviously know a lot about. And the more that people talk within the platform, the better our technology gets. So our AI model, which powers our search bar, is trained on women's conversations and more inclusive resources. And so basically the more stories that are shared, the better the results will be for everyone moving forward. Beyond searches, you basically ask a question, then you can post it for other people to weigh in.
And what I love is, again, which you've shared before, we did a lot of research before getting here today, but you had an experience with the morning after pill, which kind of is what spiraled you into thinking, how is there not more socially stamped and appropriate and personal information when it comes to things that involve our bodies, sexuality, all kinds of, I guess, more traditional taboo conversations. How did you, when that happened, because I think a lot of, you're either entrepreneurial or maybe that's not the way that your brain works. As soon as you had that experience, did you think there's really a business opportunity here or a void that needs to be filled? Like, how did that process go from your experience to now having Diem built?
I think it was a combination of both. Like, I had always wanted to build a company that could have some sort of social impact as well as scaling to be a large business. And that really had come from when I was at university. I wrote my thesis in gender and sexual based violence and in regions of conflict. And I was just like, it was the first time that I think I actually genuinely learned about gender inequality. I'd never really known about it before, in at least in a more like visceral way. So from that, I'd always kind of been like, okay, what could it be? And like, I never really had an idea of what it could be. And then after this experience, basically was like, why is my search experience in direct contrast to the way that I know that we as women look for answers in real life? Like, why can't I find stories? Why I know that those conversations happen, whether they be in a WhatsApp group, over dinner, in some like obscure forum or subreddit, but none of it's searchable. It's not in a place where people actually care about those conversations from a technological standpoint. Yeah, so from that, and then the more that my co-founder Divya and I dove into it, we sort of realized that on a macro level that conversations that women typically have with each other have historically been written off as gossipy or not important, and that actually plays into how we as individuals think about the value of those conversations. And as a sort of consequence, communication structures and now social platforms haven't been built in a way that are searchable, scalable, where that data is really being valued and recognized in the way that it should be. So yeah, from a sort of more macro perspective tied with that personal experience, we were like, okay, I think there's something here.
I love how you describe, I think it's on the Instagram bio, how you describe Diem as a Reddit chat GPT and your girl group chat had a baby.
Yes.
So like, you're like, oh, I know exactly what it is now. Like I remember I was trying to explain it to a friend yesterday, and then I read that and I was like, oh my God, that's so true. That just sums it up completely.
That was actually a review someone gave us.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
We should use our review for our podcast. One of them was like, it was so funny. It was on Reddit as well. And they were like, yeah, not a bad podcast. Pretty good for women that don't know anything. One of them's pretty clued up. The other has no idea or something. And I was like, that is
You're like, not wrong.
really not wrong, actually. Quite on point.
I was wondering, what other ideas did you have before starting Diem that you kind of binned, or how do you decide to then take this one and run with it? And I guess were there any ideas that you started to run with and you were like, oh gosh, I need to ditch this and this isn't going to work? And
I never actually had any other things that I wanted to pursue as companies.
Yeah,
I'd always been like, oh, this feels wrong. But I've also always worked in startups. So I've kind of always worked in the early stages of like ideation or executing on someone else's idea. Diem itself has like sort of changed in how the product has come to life over the last couple of years. But the mission has always been like the same, or like this idea of accessing community knowledge has always been at the core of what we want to do. So I'd say we've like definitely moved through iterations, like from a product experience perspective. But yeah, no other like big ideas.
Yeah. I think that's really important to remember as well. And I remember that with when we started the curve, what we started the curve as and what it is today is so different to what I would have thought it would have been. Like it's the great thing about running your own business and being an entrepreneur is that you can just, you can pivot different ways and take advantage of different opportunities, but also don't get so concerned if it's not what you expected it to be. It's almost like listening to your audience and what do they want and what does the community want, and kind of pivoting in that sense. Yeah,
and people always say things that they want, but they actually want different things. So you have to like take it with a grain of salt.
Yeah.
Why do you think that there's so much? I mean, you talk about loving history and history when it comes to women and how we've evolved as a society. Why do you think a lot of those conversations about sex, money, friendships, relationships are still so taboo? And why is it so important for you to change that?
I think the reason they're so taboo is that just anyone who's not a white straight man has been made to feel as though their experience in the world isn't normal. And so there's a really interesting statistic which says it came from an internal Google report, and it's basically 70% of Google searches that start with the words "is it normal" pertain to female health experiences, which is like billions of searches like every year. And you're like, okay, well, if you think about that more deeply, that's a very shocking statistic. But what's more shocking is that all of those people in some way think they're abnormal. And the reason that we think that, and that plays into our confidence, that plays into how we show up in the world. It plays into like how we like want to advocate for ourselves, maybe in the doctor's office or at work or elsewhere, because we're like, well, I'm not normal. So like, I can't ask for this thing, or maybe I shouldn't push too hard against a doctor or someone else who's my superior because maybe they know better than me. And some of the time, sure, they do, but a lot of the time it's actually rooted in like very biased data. And that, I think, is why to me I feel very passionate about trying to create a space on the internet where you don't have judgment, where you can just write those internal things that you're like, I don't know where else to type this. And we've had people write into the platform being like, I wrote this in Google, but I didn't get an answer. I was hoping someone here could help me or something like that. And you're just like, okay, it needs, like, these spaces do need to exist. But I think that, yeah, the reason they are so taboo is because everyone other than like white men have essentially been othered. And as a result, it's like, this is like a very, at least in my circles, a very overstated fact now, but I think it's like, it's gone down over the last 3 years. A couple of years ago, I think it was 2.9% of all venture funding went to female-led teams or female-only teams, founders rather.
Which is absolutely correct. Do you think that's a function of there being so few female-founded businesses? No, it's just generally where the money is at. It's white men deciding where the money goes, and or
even like beyond that, it's not like there's a lot of, or not a lot of, but increasing numbers of GPs and like associates at venture funds who are women, but it's more like a lot of the time I think that the connection, like basically you raise money if you have the right connections and it's all, and you know how to play the game. If you don't have access to people who know how to play the game and teach you about it, then you're less likely to be able to like actually go and raise, because it's a very specific way that you successfully raise venture money that is like really not talked about unless you like go through it. And historically, like all of these sort of very successful men who come out of Ivy League institutions then go and work for venture capital funds, or they start their own companies and they have access to all of these people who were their friends. It like just naturally proliferates from there. And it's not that it's not changing, but it's changing very slowly. And over the last couple of years, as there's been more uncertainty in the economy, the percentage of total venture funding that's sort of going towards, I just became very intimate with the microphone. The percentage is getting lower because people don't want to take as much risk, and like women-led founders are risky.
Oh no, I guess I'm just interested in terms of when you were talking about venture capital, I think there's probably people listening who maybe haven't heard of that term before, because before I was in business, I had no idea what it was.
Neither.
And so for those who are like, what even is getting money from venture capital, could you maybe just scale it back a little bit in terms of the explanation of what you mean by getting money and funding for female CEOs and your experience with that?
Yeah, so I mean, there's like multiple ways obviously that you can fund a business, whether it be like loans or debt or friends and family or whoever, angel investors who are basically just like code for rich individuals, or there's venture capital, and there's a bunch of others, but venture capital and venture capital funds essentially they raise money under the guise of being able to put small amounts, or as you scale, larger amounts of money into a large number of companies with the bet that one of them will make up essentially all of the returns needed for the others failing. And so it's this sort of like very technically high risk investment strategy that can reap huge returns. Like every company like an Uber or a Facebook or any of these sort of big tech companies have all raised venture capital funding. Like that's how they got to the scale that they got to. And what is problematic is that a lot of the funds still to this day, the biggest funds with the most amount of cash to not only sway like other people investing in you, like because as soon as you get one big investor, everyone else wants to invest, but also like just like have more capital to deploy are all run by men.
And from your experience with Diem, when was it funded and how did you go about that, and like how many people have you pitched to in the venture capital space?
Our first funding actually came via an accelerator program. So we did the Techstars New York accelerator a couple of years ago. And around that, we used them as sort of the anchor investor to get angel investors to come in. And then we raised a pre-seed round, which is essentially just like your first round where you bring in institutional money, which is venture capital money.
And is pre-seed, just for those who don't know, pre-seed is just when you kind of have an idea, but the business hasn't really generated revenue yet. It's like pre-business, I guess.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's like you have various proof points, but you haven't like found what you would call product market fit yet. Mm-hmm. And so typically there's like angel round, which is the first one I mentioned. There's pre-seed, there's seed round, which comes after the pre-seed. Now there's a seed plus round. And then you go into like Series A, Series B, Series C. And those are the ones where you raise lots and lots of money.
Why can't they just call it round 1, round 2,
I don't know.
round 3?
I think it's all like the same as coded finance language that make it more confusing when it's actually very simple.
Because we've had conversations with people around the idea of investing and they're like, yeah, so when you seed, when you blah, blah, and I'm always just like, yep, we'll be seeding, we'll be, I'm just like, not a clue.
Like, we've seeded the business.
We've planted some trees and we've got some sunflowers growing, like not a clue what you're talking about.
Yeah, but I think what's interesting is that there are very specific benchmarks that you need to achieve. But what is frustrating is that with changing like macroeconomic scenarios, like a lot of those benchmarks change as the funds who are supposed to still invest what they say that they're meant to at these stages are like taking a less risky approach. So basically the benchmarks for companies get higher.
Can I ask how much, and you can say, no, we're not allowed, this isn't public knowledge. How much has been invested in your company from, as a total? Do you have any idea?
Yeah, it's 3.7 million.
And is that US?
All US, apart from some angels that are UK based.
Gosh, that's just firstly, congratulations. That's amazing, because I cannot even imagine how much. I mean, do you have to pitch heaps to get a yes? Like, how does it work in terms of the yes, no hit rate?
Yes, you pitch a lot of people and it's incredibly emotionally draining. I mean, we were talking about this a little bit earlier. I think we've pitched across 3, so we've done 3 rounds. Across the 3 rounds, I honestly think I've pitched like between 200 to 300 people, both from funds and individuals.
And how many
said yes?
Yeah, well, how many do you have in the...
On our cap table, I think it's around 45. But,
amazing.
but
so cool.
A lot of those are individuals. Like we've got 5 funds and then the rest are sort of angels.
But to have, 45 people that believe in the company to the point where they're putting their money on the table to say, build this search engine, like that's incredible.
Yeah, it's quite satisfying.
I also think there's something to be said when you're pitching to predominantly male investors who I can imagine would give their 2 cents worth, as they say, hey, we're not interested, but you should change this or you should do this, or because we've found that even we're not even pitching and we have when we have unsolicited advice, exactly. And some is good and some is not so good. But I think if you've spoken to over 200 people, how do you
I know exactly what you're trying to say, so I'm just going to butt in here. How do you differentiate between the advice you take on board and the advice that you let just wash over you? Is that right, Vic?
Yes, thank you. Sorry. I'm on some pretty hard drugs at the moment. And I feel like I just really can't get my words out. Sorry, prescription drugs.
She's not shooting up in the
high on a Monday morning. It's a good question. It's very hard to stomach a lot of feedback and no's. I think that most companies are built off the back of sheer stubbornness. At least ours is a lot of the time, outside of passion, obviously, and a genuine business opportunity. But truly, like, the more people say no to me, I'm like, I'm gonna fucking prove you wrong. Like, I'm gonna you're gonna be sorry that you said that. And so I think that really it's about assessing why the person's advice might be valuable to you. And I'll sort of preface all of this, like our last round investor wise was actually majority male. So like there are male investors who do genuinely see the opportunity. Like our lead was male, our second biggest investor also male. And I think that men do get it. You just have to show them in a different, via data, via like actual usage metrics, via all of this sort of stuff. But to your question around like how to decide if they have the right advice, it's more about like Are they advising you on something that they actually know about? Like, can you use their advice as like a resource, as a tool? Like, have they built a company like this before? Have they done this? Have they solved this one specific problem that you're trying to
point around, there is a lot of men out there that are super supportive of women, and I don't want this to ever be a podcast that's, the I Hate Men Club, because
Or do you, so
really.
other than DM, do you have any investments or any portfolio?
I have a small, which I don't tend to, but I do like I use
sorry?
a small like retail investing portfolio, but I do Elvest, so I'll transfer like, I think it's literally like $50 or something a month, that just goes straight out, and I don't know what it does. I haven't actually checked on it for a while, but I would like to do more. It's just like we literally can't technically allowed to like pay ourselves much more from like a runway perspective.
Yeah, but it's hard because when you're building a business and you're really focusing on the end goal, which is never normally driven by a financial return, it's still really hard when you're at an age where we know how much we're going to have to pay for and what we want to achieve in life from the life that you want to live. If you do want to have a family eventually one day, if you do want to, I don't know, we were talking about weddings earlier, houses, etc. Off mic, by the way, if you're listening, you're like, no, you haven't. It's a really hard balance to live in the moment, make the most of what you earn, but then not be progressing towards whatever future.
And I think that the reason that you're like, a lot of investors hold this opinion that you shouldn't pay yourself lots as a founder is the idea that we own the majority of the business still, and as and when Diem sort of that translates into real money in a bank account upon an exit of some sort, then you get like a huge sort of financial influx. But like that could be like 10 years. Privileged. Like it's such like no one can do that.
Yeah, no, that's very true. And I think it's also if you're financially stressed and unhappy
you're not focused on the company.
Exactly. And if you can't afford to get to the meeting because you can't pay for an Uber, it's like that's going to end up being business detrimental. And so it is finding that balance of having enough to actually survive, but obviously not enough that you're just like, meh, I don't really care about the business. But I also think it comes down to the founder, because you can tell if a founder is passionate about their purpose and their mission, or if they're in it for financial gain and just to be paid and whatever. But
Vic's just in it for financial gain.
Same.
Yeah. But I also think it's a good reminder that investing doesn't just have to be in stocks or property or, you know, in or having cash in the bank and investing, you know, in a savings account. It can be investing in businesses. And that's what all three of us are doing right now, is that we're investing in something that's going to pay off in the long term, hopefully. And so it's just a reminder that, yes, we might feel like we don't have investments or savings or anything like that, but we're just doing it a different way to everyone else. And it's just, everyone's financial journey is different.
I often am like, oh, I have friends I went to school with who have like bought a house, which obviously their parents definitely helped them with. But they still bought a house and a lot of them did it themselves too. But I am like, I don't do that. I don't even know how to do that.
I wouldn't even be able to buy the furnishings for the inside of the house. Like I often think about how expensive some nice doors look, and I'm like, I probably couldn't buy that door yet.
Yeah, I'm kind of like, I go between kind of this, I want to go and do all the fun things, but then I'm like, if you were a responsible adult, you would do these things instead. And I'm like, but that's not fun.
I'm intrigued to know what kind of challenges you had with Diem, because I just remembered, I don't know if it was like a few months ago, with the whole banking collapse in the US.
Oh my God.
And the banks. So for those I'm trying to remember which podcast.
SVB.
Yeah, SVB Bank. And we did a podcast on it. And the reason it was relevant for you was because they had a lot of savings from venture capital companies. And so instantly I was like, oh my gosh, Emma has a startup. She might be impacted. And then found out you were. So can you just kind of explain the strategy and how do you deal with those kind of stresses? Because they're so out of your control. Yeah. Yet it's on your head essentially.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So all of our company money was in SVB. We now have a slightly more diversified banking situation. But I was like, no one told me. Like, we actually had a few investors being like, sorry, that's our bad. We should have told you to put it in multiple bank accounts. And I was like, or banks. And I was like, okay, like learning on the fly here, but like, sure. And it was a really stressful weekend. I was actually on a 15-hour flight through the entire collapse. So I landed at 5 a.m. to like 50 text messages. And I was like, oh shit.
Did you have any investors that were like, we need our money, or we're scared or anything like that? No,
everyone was very much in like, we're in it together. We'll help you out. Do you have enough for payroll? Because basically the weekend it collapsed was in the US, you get paid every 2 weeks. And so it's usually on like the 15th and like the 30th of the month. And this happened right before the middle of the month payroll. And so the main question for like most venture funds to their portfolios was like, do you have enough money for payroll? Can we like float you money? Can we like, can you get debt, access to debt? Like, do you have loans? All of this sort of stuff. We were honestly fine, because they issued this like insurance thing that we were going to get access to on Monday. And so we would have been able to run payroll with that money. But yeah, I was like, oh, cool. Well, another thing on my resume, know how to deal with bank collapse.
It also sounds like you've got some amazing investors, like really
they're
supportive,
really nice.
super onto it.
Yes.
I mean,
we have some good funds.
yeah. I would love to talk about weddings and being a bridesmaid and being a bride. I guess it's kind of
experience in both of those.
Yeah, I do. Yes, I do.
All three of
so
us.
many. Yeah.
Very experienced in becoming a bride.
So experienced in being in relationships in general. No, but like, you've just turned 30. Happy birthday, firstly.
Thank you.
Party looked epic.
It was very fun.
But, I think often as women we get to 30 and we think, F-U-C-K. Yeah. I don't have a husband, don't have a house, don't have 17 kids, don't have, it's like this weird pressure that we have grown up thinking you get to 30 and you've got your shit sorted. And by shit sorted, I mean financially, relationship-wise, generally kids on the way.
Societally accepted
things. Thank you. I'm wondering, when you turned 30, did you have, I don't know, a change of a perception when it comes to marriage, or what financial success means to you, or what were kind of your big revelations around money, relationship, etc.?
I don't know why. I might just be because my entire brain space is taken up with trying to think of Diem things, but I don't really care about children or marriage or being engaged or any of those things, at least yet. I'm like very content with, I think, all of those things. The biggest revelations I think I had, or things that I thought most about, were more just like I started to understand, it sounds really lame, but like the concept of time and like what age means for everyone in your life, not just you. And I think that I'm like, oh, I'm 30, and that means that like my dad's 60th is in a month, for example, or like my grandparents are like 90. And I think that I realized the value of time rather than anything else.
I get asked that question as well, being 34, and it's like, oh, when are you going to get married, or when are you going to be in a relationship even?
Are you like, I'm in a relationship with my business
with
partner?
myself.
With myself. Self-love. Anyway, no, but it's true. But I look at my parents and I see them with my niece and nephew, and I'm like, I want that. And that's more of the thing that I'm worried about, is their time.
Yeah.
Not so much my time, because I've frozen my eggs. I'm not concerned about that side of things, and I'm literally like, this is my time to focus on my business and grow my business. But it's other people's time that I'm like, oh gosh, my dad's nearly 80, and he's not gonna be running around after my kids if I'm waiting another 10 years, so it's kind of but then it's also other people's time, like us. This is our time to head down, bum up, and work on our business. So please don't ever fall pregnant.
Got to be having sex for that.
But so I totally get that. It's a real thing.
Yeah.
Can we backtrack to your marriage question, bridesmaid and being a bride, which, by the way, really need to swallow my words and not presume that people want any of those things. Normally, I'm quite aware of that. I don't know why it came out in that way. So firstly, apologies. Secondly, how does that then translate when you see all of your friends getting married, the amount of money they spend on weddings, the amount of money you're asked to spend when you're a bridesmaid? Because I did read a piece that you wrote for Diem, which I just think I nearly kissed my computer screen over. I was like, she is just saying exactly. I think I forwarded it immediately to Vic and was like, we've got to talk to her about this.
You've done that probably about 10 times.
Big fan.
I'm like, yes, I subscribe to Diem too, Sophie.
Can I have the clipping just of that, so I can just put that as marketing?
Do you want to use it as your new Diem byline?
My new Diem bio. The review. I'll put the review on our front page. So question about, I guess the first question around like, how do I feel when other people get married? I don't know. I'm kind of in two minds. Like, one, I love going to the weddings that are like insanely opulent and like fun and like it's like fun to go to. It's not like you're there, you're like, oh, why am I here? Like, it's so boring.
What a drag.
Like, what a drag. Like,
have free food and free alcohol and hang out with friends.
Like, sound shit. No, but so like that side, you're obviously like, it's really nice. But at the same time, I think that like in this Instagram era that we exist in, weddings have just become a performance. And there's like, even like friends I have who are getting married or have got married are like, well, I need this and this and this. And then they talk about it and they're like, wait, why did I need those things, kind of thing? Like, why did I care about $100,000 worth of flowers or however much money? I don't think any of them spend that. And you're just like, we have created this like performance and like competitive culture around the quality of your wedding and what you do for it and how you look and how many outfits you have, and like
it's not crazy. Sustainable from a financial perspective as well. I think the interesting thing is, even if you look at then the ring, or like how big the ring is, it's all for external. I mean, yes, you look at the ring and you think it's beautiful, but it's I think the whole idea of even exposing your love so loudly is an interesting concept. Even it's just odd. The idea that you go and you say your vows in front of everybody you know, I find the whole thing, and I'm not bashing weddings, I really do sit there and like cry because I think they're so beautiful that people are so in love that they want to share that with the world. But then when you relate that into how much money is spent on rings, on outfits, what's expected when you're a bridesmaid, the whole thing becomes so elaborate, and you wonder what's the purpose behind it.
For my personal choice, I'm like, if like my parents or my future husband's parents or like my own money that I would be investing into a wedding, I want the money for other things. Like, can I have it for life?
It's funny. I remember my 21st, my parents were like, we can pay for a birthday party for you, or we can give you the money to go traveling. And I was like, I want a party. And now I'm like, oh gosh, I would have loved to have gone traveling. Like, way more memories. Like, I was drunk. And everyone was drunk. No one remembers the night.
You're a party girl though, through and through. And I think, your birthdays really have become a bit of a thing. So it doesn't surprise me.
I'm the same. I have like 12 events.
But coming back to the weddings thing, I remember I was at a wedding and it was torrential rain, and I went up to the bride, who was a friend of mine, and I was like, oh, I'm so sorry that it's raining on your wedding day. Like, I hope everything's okay. Which in hindsight, I'm just like, why would I say that? But she...
You're like, I'm having a horrible time.
Literally. I was like, oh no, I was just like, oh yeah, it's so sad that it's... Anyway. And she just kind of turned to me and said, she's like, are you kidding? It's my wedding day and I'm here with the love of my life. And I was just like, oh my gosh, everything's kind of falling to pieces around you in terms of what I thought was the expectation of her wedding. And it was just a really good reminder that she was genuinely there to marry the guy that she loved. And I was just like, wow, here I was being like...
a capitalist.
Yeah. I was just like, oh my gosh, I felt instantly guilty. And I was like, you know what? That's what weddings should be about. Yeah, it was just a really good reminder.
Yeah. I've been to a few this year where I'm like, this was just all about you as a couple and like your friends being there to celebrate you, and it was really nice.
I still would choose $100,000 to go traveling over a wedding any
or
day
house.
of the week.
I don't know, like, or I don't know, like a nice anything. Handbag.
Oh my god, I honestly, if I had $100,000, my life would be significantly different, and I would be 100% choosing that over one day. But then I wonder if people who have spent that much look at the amount they spent and think, I wouldn't have changed that, and that was worth every dollar. Because I guess if none of us have been married, we can't really speak from experience.
I'd probably have the party. Yeah. $100,000 party. Hell yeah.
Yeah, it does sound fun. Yeah, I mean, like, I know we wanted to talk about bridesmaids as well, but I think that the amount of money that is spent on the wedding definitely like trickles down into the expectation of the bridesmaid group. I wrote this in the article, but like I will have been bridesmaid twice by the end of this year. So once was for my sister a couple of years ago, which was obviously really fun. And then the second's one of my best friends in December. And I think like for both of those, I've never really had the bridesmaid experience where you're like, oh my God, I've just spent like my entire life savings and I have to buy a dress and I have to buy a $10,000 like, or $4,000 rather, hen's party, or I have to like do all of this sort of stuff. I haven't had that from a personal experience yet, but like just the amount, even when you live in a different country and like all of your friends who don't live in the same country who you grew up with get married in Europe, and you're like, well, I don't really have an excuse other than saying I'd prefer to keep the money for myself.
It was funny. I read this meme and it was like destination wedding, and it was like definition, a passive aggressive way to get rid of your poor friends.
Yeah.
Where'd you read that, babe? Was that on the Curves Instagram? Like, we posted that.
Just this platform that I follow. Everyone should follow it. It's really great.
Emma, in terms of your personal relationship with money and how you view it, and I don't know, not from a business sense, but just more of a everyday gal sense. How do you, I don't know, how do you save, spend? Shut up, Victoria, okay? It was a bit of a lame moment, but just try and keep
Move on.
Move on, we sweep it under the rug. Yeah, how do you relate to money personally?
My goal is to have as much money as I possibly can.
Love that.
I think we talked about this on a call maybe a couple of months ago, but you were like, I saw an interview where you said you wanted to be a tech billionaire. Is that true? And I was like, yes.
I just love the overtness of it.
Basically what I want is to unlock financial freedom, and not just to buy fun things or go on nice trips, which I also would like, and to have a nice house or multiple houses.
Or this and that.
and that. I would like everything. But the main reason I want to unlock financial freedom in like as large a scale as I'm able to is because I want to, like, a lot of what I want to do professionally and like my impact that I might like to have on the world is rooted in like being able to like invest in opportunities. Like, I would love, like, if I had enough money, like I would invest money in like women's health research and like invest in charities, invest in like NGOs. Like, a lot of my like motivation is just like, I want to be able to like move the needle, and having money is power, and being able to like spend that power in various ways is really exciting to me.
I feel like that's just a mic drop moment.
I was literally thinking in my head, that'll be a great video for Instagram.
Content.
Okay, one last question. If you woke up tomorrow and there was $1 million in your bank account,
Oh, what a dream.
what would you do with it?
What would I do? Okay, well, first of all, I'd buy myself something nice.
I need specifics here. Like, what are you purchasing?
I'd buy like most of the row.
Oh, love that. Same. We'd both be in the same store, like fighting each other with $1 million.
Feel like, no, it's my bag. No, I mean, I would do that. But I would also, I think I'd take people I love on a nice holiday somewhere. I'd invest.
Where to? Details.
Somewhere like really tropical, like a sort of, not Bora Bora, because I feel like that everyone goes there if they have lots of money. Yeah, like somewhere like that, and have like a whole situation.
It was funny actually when you came back on email and you were like, oh, I'll be in Bristol, but you can come here and record. And Soph's like, oh my God, I always wanted to go to Bristol. I was like, chill, babe, it's not the Bahamas. It's no offense to anyone.
I genuinely have been so excited to come to Bristol. Like, everyone says it's full of interesting, creative people. It's like a small version of London. I feel like that's my vibe.
Yeah, it's very cute, but it was just, I think, the caps lock and the exclamation marks and the
enthusiasm
so
on emails.
Excited. But yeah, no, I mean, somewhere nice on holiday. I would be sensible and invest some things. Maybe Vicky can help me with that.
Nice.
And then I think I would like to do something nice for people in my life, and then I'd like to buy myself nice things.
Great answer. Emma, thank you so much for your time, for welcoming us into your home, and just sharing, I think, definitely the business side of things, and how funding works, and the importance of knowing that there is potential for
Thank you for clarifying. I was offended.
I could see her face. She was like, fuck, Vic's a bit of a bitch.
And I'll probably see you at Christmas.
Yes.
Can I come? I want to come.